Hey guys, Kid here of Burn 1 with another video. This time I'm bringing you a BCS 2019 World's Meta prediction. If you're part of any of the Facebook communities, such as the North American community or the global community, and as well as if you take part in any of the Discord communities, I released a survey that I gave out to the public for everyone to rate each series, how strong they believe the series is for the BCS 2019 World's Meta. And that way we can get a list of every set in English broken down of what the community believes to be the strongest to the weakest. So I had everyone that took the survey to rate it from 1 to 10, 1 being the weakest, 10 being the strongest, and 5 being middle of the road average deck. After I got all that information collected, I went ahead and multiplied the total score by 10 and then divided it by the number of people who voted on that series, and then got an average point total being out of 100 here, to decide the ranking system on each set. So we're just gonna go in here and break down every possible series you can play in English and their placement in order from what the community believes to be the weakest set to the strongest set. So jumping right in, no surprise here, we have Detective Opera Milky Holmes. It's a set that only had like a little trial deck, and it's not even a trial deck, it was like a promotional learn how to play Weiss set released. It doesn't have much going for it, it doesn't have any level 3s, so obviously the set's gonna come in all the way dead last. I was actually pretty surprised on the survey. Some people obviously were trolling. I don't think they think it's the best set, but there was a couple 10s in there, which was pretty funny. But some people actually voted it to be more like a 4 or a 5, which was a bit surprising, but it's understandable because the level 1 combo in it is actually uninteractive, and it still has big level 2 beaters that you can deal with. Moving on, we have at 32nd place, Fairy Tail with 21.9 points. So Fairy Tail is a little different compared to the Japanese counterpart, but still it's such an old set now that unless it gets more support, it probably isn't going to be moving up anytime soon. It does have some cool tools, but nothing as amazing as what's currently out and available. 31st place, Angel Beats at 26.9 points. This is a set that at one point was a meta powerhouse back in 2012. Around there. Even in Japanese, it was one of the strongest sets because it was just so consistent. But nowadays, with new tools we have available in each set, this set has just been falling behind over and over again. One thing to note though, it does have a very nice level 1 combo if it ever does get some extra support in English somehow. It does have that 1 combo on Wind Trigger that's uninteractable, which is nice, and it still has a 1175, so it can still fight for field. Next, at 30th place, we got MONOGATARI Series. So, unfortunately, this set the series only has, I think, 2 sets in English. There's a ban list for it in Japanese. Unfortunately, I think that's part of the reason why we haven't seen the new sets drop in English. But the set overall, it doesn't have anything really amazing going on for it other than like the level 3 Senjuga, which can accidentally make people misplay. The set can be powerful if we get more support for it, so hopefully we get more support soon in the English meta. Next, we have Kill La Kill. So Kill La Kill is a pretty interesting set. It was released really early on, and it had a very unique 1-0 event to Mil 4, as well as like 1135 counters. It has some tools to be pretty interesting. There is some extra support in Japanese. Hopefully that comes out in English, and if that happens, I could see Kill La Kill moving up. But until then, it's going to be down here with the other guys. Next, we have Log Horizon. Log Horizon's a pretty interesting set. Once again, we have some support in Japanese that we don't get in English. If that comes out, maybe it'll move up some. I'm not sure how much it would move up or how the community would really react. But one thing to note, this is one of the few series in English that has an effect that causes your opponent not to be able to use burn damage through auto effects. It's pretty interesting. Maybe if we get that extra support, this can move way up. Next, we have Haruhi. So at 27th place with 31.3 points, Haruhi is here. it's another set. This is really interesting. A lot of these bottom tier sets in English actually have more support in Japanese. Unfortunately, we just never got it. So if we get support for this set in English, I could see it moving way up. It has a lot of unique things like a level 3 that causes your opponent unable to play climaxes, as well as a 2-0 event counter that makes your opponent discard their climax from their climax zone, making them lose out on climax combos that don't trigger on attack immediately. The set overall is like pretty interesting. It just, it just can't keep up with the current changes in the English meta, so until we get extra support for it, we're probably not going to see Haruhi make a big comeback. Next, at 26 is Disgaea with 32.7 points. Disgaea is actually pretty interesting. It's a set that we basically have everything in English now. There's, I think, a few cards that haven't come out in English, like random promo cards and stuff like that. But overall, we got basically everything, I think, from actually what matters. But the set has a lot of cool tools and like interesting effects. And hopefully there will be more support for it in the future. Maybe a Disgaea 5 set. I know Dean has always been crying for that. And then maybe we can have Disgaea make a crazy comeback. Next, we have Madoka. Madoka used to be one of the other powerhouses back when Angel Beats was very strong. The set overall is still pretty interesting. It has ways to combat the current meta a little bit. It's just not very, very strong at the top end. As well as its big strength is the 2-1 Sayaka's Wish. It has a lot of access to clock kicks, so if it gets a little bit better, or maybe the next set comes out, because now the mobile game is actually licensed in America or in North America, so maybe we'll get the third set and Madoka will make a big comeback, but we'll see what happens. 24th place we have Hatsune Miku, 36.2 points. Surprised it's even this high. Hatsune Miku just has a, Soundless Voice is the main deck most people play. There is a third set out in Japanese. If that comes out here, we can see Hatsune Miku making a comeback on the meta. Probably going to be an easy top 10, maybe even top 5, depending on what's out at the time. But until then, we're still stuck playing the Soundless Voice wall, basically, and winning board through that to be able to push for game. 23rd, Nisekoi, False Love version E with 41 points. This was a really interesting set. I think this was one of the first sets. If it wasn't this, must have been Fairy Tail that got a version E where they changed some card effects because they were afraid at the time of certain cards being too powerful in English. A lot of people were upset about that. The set overall, though, is very consistent at what it does. It just doesn't have anything very super impactful worth playing in the set. The 1-1 events and stuff like that, pendant promise pendants or whatever, all have really good effects that are powerful, and the deck is fairly consistent even without like the good top end. Maybe if for whatever reason we ever get more support, maybe Nisekoi can pop up a little bit, but it seems pretty unlikely now. 22nd place, PRISMA ILLYA, 42.1 points. So we have everything except one of the sets, I guess the most recent set in Japanese that came out. So we have everything except for that. The deck is pretty fun. Kaleidoscope is still a very scary card to see across the board no matter what. So you can high roll and win games like that, as well as it has a few other niche combos here and there that are pretty interesting. 21st place, Accel World with 44 points. Accel World is actually, I feel like, underappreciated a lot. It has a lot of interesting things going on for it. It has a good level 3 combo finisher. It has like level 1 effects that like just plus you a lot of hand. The downside is we're in a meta that you can't guarantee to have any reverses ever, because AOT is still considered a pretty big boogeyman of the whole English meta. So people have constantly been playing around not being able to get reverses. If we switch into a meta where it's a lot easier to find reverses, I mean, I could see Accel World making a comeback. It definitely has some tools to fight Albuda and stuff like that should be explored a little bit more. So maybe if AOT makes a really hard drop off after Worlds with all these new sets coming out, I could see Accel World making a comeback. Next, at 20th place, it is Love Live with 49.5 points. So this is interesting. There was actually a very new set that just came out in Japanese for this set, and which brought this set way back into relevance. But besides that, in English, it's a pretty solid, okay set. It's still breaking the top 20, I guess, which is pretty interesting. But, you know, if we get that new set, I can see it easily coming in within the top 5, or top 5, top 10 of what the meta is playing. At 19th place here, we got Idolmaster Cinderella Girls with 52.5 points. Solid set overall. Unfortunately, we're missing one set in English if that set ever comes out. I'm not even sure if that set would make such a huge impact that it would warrant anything to be worried about. It might move up some, most likely maybe make it into the top 10. One thing to note, though, is that in Japanese there is a ban list for this set. Usually most of the utility cards are on a choice list. So, you know, maybe there'll be some cool deck ideas if a second set does come out in English and we have access to everything instead of having a ban list. At 18th place, we have Batman Ninja with 54 points. I'm surprised how high up this is. I personally do not think the set is super amazing, but it's been making some, you know, top 8 placements, so maybe my evaluation is wrong here. The set has really good tools to deny reverses, especially early on against your opponent. So if you like to tell your opponent that they can't combo off of reverses, you can just tell them to stop. The top end is okay, uninteractive for the most part. We have a, you know, swinging double strike attack Batman Ninja here. And then green also has some interesting effects and a decent level 1 combo. You know, it's still kind of early on for this set, and we have nothing else to really base it off on. So hopefully there'll be some more cool deck ideas soon, and maybe, you know, Batman Ninja will break the top 10 and maybe even top 5. Next, at 17th place, we have the Fate Series, 54.5 points. Here, because this is a public survey, some people might have just kind of voted without really thinking too much about it. I said early on that to include every set that will be out for BCS 2019, that includes the Heaven's Feel series. I think, you know, because of that, some confusion was going on, and this actually got placed lower than it probably should be. But here we're at 54.5 points. I think when Heaven's Feels drop, the set will get a way more power boost. The only interesting thing is that I'm wondering if the current decks we see in Japanese will transition over very well into English or not, because they have access to a couple extra cards that never got printed in English. That includes a 3/3 Hill event counter. It's a 3/3, or not counter, it's just a 3/3 Hill 3 event, which is pretty strong because there's the gold bar deck running around that's built around stalling the game at level 3, forcing your opponent using this assassin to side attack this level 3 instead of front attacking it, basically and essentially making it a -3 soul in front. And then, you know, you +1 as well as the card lives because it doesn't do battle. It'll be really interesting to see where this finally ends up after that new set releases. Next, we have at 16th place, No Game, No Life at 55 points. This is a really interesting set because when it came out, I thought a lot of people were going to get into it in English, but it hardly made a splash. We hardly ever see it in the top 8s. But it's still, I guess people still consider this very strong. I think mostly the 8 standby list is what I see mostly still being played in English as well. There's a couple other lists I see, but like I said, we haven't seen any big breakout lists for No Game No Life in English. Hopefully someone can come up with something or you know, make it far enough at a BCS and we see No Game No Life starting to make an impact. But yeah, I'm surprised to see it at 16th place here with almost no representation in top 8 this year. Next, at 15th place, we have GURREN LAGANN at 58.6 points. So this set is pretty solid. There's a lot of people who actually bought into this set, you know, because GURREN LAGANN is just a good anime series overall. It has 2 decks. We have the normal, basically human deck, and then we have the fusion deck. I think what's more popular here usually is the the fusion deck basically, where they sunder or whatever to do the 5 attacks. It's a really solid deck that doesn't really need a lot of like special care to be done. One of the weak sides, of course, is that the set doesn't have a lot of ways to manipulate your deck. But overall, it's just a solid field-based deck that has good pluses. Next, at 14th place, we have Cardcaptor Sakura, clear card with 59.2 points. The English version of Cardcaptor Sakura is pretty interesting. There's a lot of like tools and good like top ends you can kind of choose from. We have Record, which is pretty solid, as well as Reflect, I think is really good as well. And it has a decent early play minus soul wall, basically, that a lot of people do play, which might be the best version. I'm not really sold on it yet, but I mean, I don't think we've seen the extent of what Cardcaptor Sakura clear card can do. Hopefully we get some more deck builders in there, come up with a very wacky list that, you know, can push it to its limit. Next, at 13th place, we have Fate Apocrypha with 62.8 points. Fate Apocrypha is pretty interesting. I think the most common builds actually are Wind Trigger Gate or Book Gate. Both are very solid decks. And then, you know, if you play the Jean Topin and all that with the dragon and all that, it's a really scary ping for one nonstop shenanigans at level 3. So it's really good at closing out games. I think the biggest thing is the set struggles to get to that position to be able to combo off very well. Hopefully someone might come up with their own thing, maybe incorporate more standby or something like that into the set, and we might see a change here. But yeah, Fate Apocrypha is pretty solid. 12th place here, Loveru Darkness second with 63.9 points. This was a set at one point was considered like you play it or you're not winning the event, which is crazy. It was only for, I think, 1 year or so. It probably has one of the best like 2-turn finishes, I guess, in English, maybe. Very powerful level 3, as well as anti-damage counters. Unfortunately, those that target nowadays have become a lot weaker due to AOT. But you know, we just saw a top 4 at New Jersey with Loveru, so maybe they'll make a comeback here. It's definitely in a position that it can abuse some of the sets out there. Next is Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Online with 68.1 points at 11th place here. GGO, when it first came out, made a pretty decent splash during teams as well as in BCS regional events. It's placed a couple times already. It's a really solid set, though I've always made the comment that I think it's just like a weaker version of Sunshine, but it's very consistent. It's one of the few English decks that let you play a gate very easily, and you just don't care about what your opponent does for the most part. It has a couple different level 1 combos that, you know, people can choose from, but I've mostly been seeing the TD combo, usually because I think that's best way to fight AOT is level 1 bombs that do let you plus as well off of a gate combo. Next, at 10th place, we have Revue Starlight. I'm really surprised how high Revue Starlight is here. We haven't seen almost any representation of this series at all in top 8, and I'm not sure how many people actually come up and show up with this deck at regionals to compete with. Revue Starlight overall, though, is pretty solid. I don't think there's been any like definitive builds I've seen out there like at all for English side. But if I had to guess, we're probably looking at something like Standby Gate or maybe Standby Wind or 8 Wind Trigger decks. All of those seem very solid overall, and I'm really interested to see who will be the first person to maybe break Revue Starlight in English and be able to place top 8 with it before the next set does come out. Hopefully the new Relive set that was just recently announced a while ago in Japanese will come out in English sometime soon next year. Next, we have 9th place Persona. Persona series is always solid. The current deck with Joker, level 1 and everything is just one of the really solid wall decks that includes ways to compress with markers. And also, you know, the top end is pretty good. It can remove like annoying stuff early and then get extra attacks off as long as you have the stock and resources to pay for it using the Joker level 3. Overall, it's probably one of the best like generic wall decks out there. The most common build I'm seeing though is Stock Soul Wind Trigger, which is pretty good, and I think overall it has an okay matchup against some of the other top like 5 meta decks. At 8th place we have Contact Collection, another super solid wall deck. Basically, we have a lot of decks playing Prince and Kashima top end with Gate. So you have access to some really cool tech cards choices in here. So if people start running around with even more Gate, we have anti-salvage in there, as well as you do have compasses that do blank attacks and let you mill 3 basically. It's overall has like the tools to be very, very strong. I think it's just missing some key points, like at level 1 it doesn't deal very well with Sunshine playing bombs and stuff like that. But if it doesn't hit any of those, it's a really solid deck and really tough to beat. At 7th place, we have Bunny Girl Senpai, 79.8 points here. So this set isn't out in English yet, so we didn't have as many people voting on it because some people only play English. Bunny Girl Senpai right now is like the defining set for Japanese, like meta-wise. This card here, the Futaba here, has Bodyguard or Great Performance, if you only know the English terms. That makes it really, really annoying to get past because of the supports and in combination of Standby. Standby right now being a really big part of the Japanese meta. When this comes out, I'm wondering how impactful this set will be and how strong will the Standby version of the deck be. Or maybe we'll see something different like book gate versions of the deck, which was something very popular right when the set first released until people start switching over to the Standby list. It'll be interesting to see how this develops once it's completely released and more time to play with it. At 6th place, we have ReZero with 81.3 points. Once again, this is another super solid set. It has a really good early play Neg-Soul wall, Emilia wall, basically, as well as there's just a couple different versions of the deck running around. Recently, we saw in Texas, Cameron over there took first place with Yellow-Blue. I've seen as well, I think, 3rd place in, I think it was Chicago. 3rd place, Li Shen got with Red-Blue. You have a lot of options with ReZero on how you want to play it, and I mean even 3rd place in New Jersey, Dean got with Belgi's top end, which is something you don't see that often. So ReZero definitely has the flexibility to play any way you like it, as well as being always very consistent. Super solid set. All right, now we're breaking into the top 5. At 5th place, Sword Art Online with 82.9 points. Sword Art Online has always been a boogeyman for everyone ever since its release from set 1 till now. And they're getting a new set 2 coming soon. Overall, I don't think there's any definitive builds right now being the best build. I've been seeing a lot of standby lists running around, as well as gold bar lists with book. It'll be really interesting to see if anyone's going to end up bringing Sword Art Online to Worlds and what versions they'll be playing. Overall, though, Sword Art Online is another one of those sets that has multiple solid meta choices and different tools to combat the meta very well. Next, at 4th place, we have Love Live Sunshine with 91 points. Pretty surprised this didn't make the top 3, but you know, Sunshine overall I think has been at least what I would consider one of the most scary decks to play against in English. It has its level 3 game is basically starts being played at level 2, and it gets really big, so if you have no ways to deal with early plays, it feels really bad to fight against this set. And I think Sunshine is one of the few sets that if you have anti-change counters, they could profitably attack, side attack your lanes and not care, especially if they drop a climax, just because the Yo burn is going to add so much. There's so much consistency going on with the set. The only downside to it is that it has no other real ways to combat early plays other than to fight with either its own early plays or if the person decides to play like the 2-1 Yoshiko stock bomb at level 2. Some lists do run that, but they don't have access to any counters that stop early plays, so you know it kind of balances out there. But overall, I think Sunshine is one of the strongest sets to be on in general. Next, 3rd place, Bang Dream, 91.1 points. I mean, I don't think this is too surprising. I think almost every top 8 right now has had some representation of Bang Dream in it at all the BCSs, as well as like I think almost every list has been slightly different. I don't think there's any super definitive lists going around right now, and we're about to have a new set drop in English as well, which will probably shake up Bang Dream completely. I'm sure this set is going to be relative for quite some time. It has the tools and different tools and everything to combat whatever meta comes forth. It has ways to deal with Albuda walls. It has Yukino level 3 here. That's just really powerful finisher. You just have access to a lot of great utility overall, making Bang Dream a very scary deck to sit across because you never know what you're playing against, even after like the first mulligan. Sometimes you will see just utility cards and you don't know what you have to prepare for until like level 1. Second place, Attack on Titan. I'm actually surprised this didn't get first here. I'm not sure how many of you are surprised this way, but I figured most of the community would consider Attack on Titan the best deck in the format. So Attack on Titan overall, I think, is the best toolbox deck out there right now. Maneuver Gear is just really dumb, like period. Any version of Maneuver Gear you're playing is broken, in my opinion. So because of Maneuver Gear, you have access to your entire deck or even your waiting room if you play the 1-1 version, which makes it very scary. On top of the Mikasa level 3 that became super popular in the West is always going to be a scary level 3 to sit across from, especially when you're at like 3-0 to 3-3. You feel really bad still, even though you might be at 3-0. Just the pings for 1 and everything are really, really tough. On top of the fact that they have support that can't be interacted with, making the cards in front of it can't be interacted with it. So it's not like you can just anti-damage counter the Mikasas or anything like that. And in a lot of cases, they can set up their entire board to be untargetable, which is really, really tough. AOT overall is the super solid solitaire toolbox deck that can almost answer anything in the meta. And finally, first place, no surprise here, I guess, for some people, Konosuba, 93.7 points. I can't believe how high this got up there. I think one of the reasons Konosuba, Konosuba is definitely a top 3, top 5 deck easy. One of the biggest things with Konosuba, though, is that I think sitting across from it and playing it are like worlds of difference here. So a lot of ways that Konosuba beats out people is just like by burning for big numbers of damage, because they set it up that way that they shuffle your deck back in, stock swap you lose out climaxes that way. You like refresh with like 4 climaxes in like a 35 card deck. So these big numbers stick more often than not. So when you play with Konosuba, you feel really good for burning 5. But when you play against Konosuba, it feels horrible just losing to a burn 5. There's a lot of situations too where Konosuba, because of the way it sets up its end game, it kind of combos off at the end game there. It's reasonable to die from like 2-6 or like 2-4 even. There are games where like you can just steal victories. It's one of those sets too that, because of the way its top end works, no matter how far behind you fall, as long as you can stabilize just a little bit and get to level 3 with enough stock and enough resources to combo off normally, even if your opponent is at like I said, like even 2-2, you still feel like you have a chance, because burn 5 is just so powerful. And then like swinging for 5 and then swinging for 2, or like even if you decide to play the normal Megumin top into the stock soul combo, burning 4 and then clock kicking is really powerful as well. If you're playing against an opponent that is at 3-0 and has 3 cards in front that you have access to clock kick, it just feels so bad, because if they take any burn 4, they just lose the game immediately. So Konosuba, I guess in some ways, not a surprise that it's number 1, just of the way it makes everyone feel, I guess, when they play against it and with it. It just seems so powerful. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and transition over to the full list here. And here you have it, guys, the visual representation of the survey results. This is what the community believes the world meta is going to be like. I asked that you guys hopefully not screenshot this and publish it everywhere. I'd rather have people come watch this video. But besides that, I do have another survey I'm doing. It's a private one, though. It's being given out to all the world invite holders, as well as some other top players, just to see what their idea of what the meta is going to be like. And when that survey wraps up in about a month or so, once most of the BCS events have finished, it'll be really interesting to look at those results and compare them to the full community results here. Besides that, guys, hope to see you guys in the next video. Before you go, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel if you do enjoy our content, as it does help us grow, and check out some of these social media links below.